Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name's Bryn Durgan. I'm the Director of Programming here at Bookstore One. And I know some of you have been here many times before, and for others it might be your first time. But of course we are an independent bookstore, but we do a lot of events up here in the loft. So we have author talks and signings like we're having tonight, but we also have writing workshops and live radio theater, all sorts of things. So if you haven't yet signed up for our mailing list, I would encourage you to do that, and it's right downstairs at the front of the store. So now I will introduce you to the author of the hour, who will give a brief reading, and then we'll launch into, the two of us, a discussion, and then there will be time for audience questions before the book signing. She is a sought-after motivational speaker who specializes in survivor impact. Since 2018, she has been sharing her story with audiences eager to hear of her courage and survival. She has spoken to universities, law enforcement agencies, forensic nursing organizations, and true crime conventions. She has given dozens of interviews to the country's top news agencies, including CBS News, 48 Hours, 2020, USA Today, CNN, and Newsweek. She has also been interviewed in Vanity Fair, Cosmopolitan, and People, among other publications. She lives in South Florida with her husband and her dog. And she is the author of A Light in the Dark, the book that you've got to get today. We have it right downstairs at the counter, out now in paperback. So let's welcome Kathy Kleiner Rubin. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Click it on.
Am I on?
Now you're on.
Yeah, no.
yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's very nice that you invited me, and I'm happy to talk to you.
Great. So would you like to share a little bit about yourself and from the book before we get into questions?
Yes, I will.
Is your mic working?
Is it working? I don't have it close enough.
Yeah.
When I was attacked, I moved down to South Miami to be back with my family. I was attacked at FSU by Ted Bundy. And when I went down, the attack left me with my jaw broken in 3 places. So it had to be wired shut. And it was wired shut for 9 weeks. And all I could drink or eat was through a straw. So the day came when I was supposed to get my mouth open. I was so excited, and afterwards my parents took me to Howard Johnson's, and we were gonna go and have something to eat. I found, though, I couldn't open my mouth wide enough to actually put food in there because the muscles were still tight. So I spooned in my scrambled eggs and cheese and ham, and I gnawed it. And then I looked around, I thought, oh, everyone in here is looking at me, watching me eat. And Mama said, no, they're not. They're, don't worry about it. You're fine. You're okay. Light here. Except I wasn't. I was traumatized. I wanted to be better, and I came up with my own form of mental health treatment. Pardon my hand, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
With a technique that is now referred to as visualization. To help my anxiety, I imagined a small island in the ocean. It was tranquil, sandy island, and it had a single palm tree dotted with coconuts and a single beach chair. I visualized this island, and every day I imagined myself moving closer. The island represented healing, and it also represented the idea that I was creating distance between myself and my past trauma. All I had to do was live my daily life, and then I could move over to the island the next day. At first, though, the island was a speck in a distance. All I could do was want to get there. I had a long way to go. I referred to my progress toward the island as baby steps. Every few days, I would go into a relaxed state, and I would picture myself taking baby steps toward the island. Sometimes I would turn back and look behind me, and all I'd see is this swirling dark mass. I knew that black mass had once surrounded me like a fog, but I was able to slowly step away from it, and it put the darkness behind me. The visualization of soothing me, it also gave me it also gave me the hope of if I had something to look forward to, one day I could reach that island. In my mind, I would sit on the sandy beach with my toes in the sand, and I would look back at the ocean I had just crossed over, and the darkness would be gone.
Thank you for reading that. I was talking with Kathy a little bit before this, and today is actually the anniversary of the attack, and it's also, of course, the paperback release. And my first question would be, what motivated you to write this book now after so many years?
During the years, I've wanted to tell my story. I picked it up and I started writing on yellow notepads and trying to tell things that I wanted to say. And then I realized, well, I'm here writing this. My son is in a field playing soccer, and I'm missing that. And I found to sit and talk about the past and miss the happenings of the here and now, I didn't think it then became important to do that. And about 2 years ago, Emily Lucchese, my co-author, sent me an email and connected with me. And we met and got together and found out that we could work together. So she helped me as I thought things and I felt things, and I would talk to her 2 hours a week, and she would write down in her beautiful words what I was feeling. So I just thought this was now a good time to do it. We're retired. I have nowhere to go. So it was just time. Now it's good.
And were there any unexpected moments of catharsis, or even the opposite? I mean, revisiting traumatic events is, of course, traumatic. So what was the writing process like for you?
It was moments, a roller coaster of really high loves and really harmful regrets and hurts. And that did come up, and it still does. And I never know how something's going to affect me. It's in the moment and how I'm feeling. But it was a great process with her.
So, and of course, your experience surviving Ted Bundy's attack is one of the most widely known aspects of your story. So how did you approach reclaiming your story?
I wanted it to be about me, but more important, it was about the women that Bundy killed. All the young women, the 32 beautiful young women that he killed and took away from us way too soon. And that was my main focus. You read a book on Ted Bundy, you open it up and there's a chapter, and it has all our names with a comma, and then Lisa Levy with a comma, and all the women that he killed. And over the years, that just seemed so unfair. So I wanted to set the record straight that he's not what was important in the story, they were.
Yeah, and I think you did a beautiful job doing that. And in the book, it struck me that you describe hearing the phrase, "Who is Ted Bundy?" on the news after the attack. And at the time, you had no idea who he was or what he had done. So can you talk about what it was like to learn of the full scope of his crimes while recovering from the trauma?
Right after the attack, I went home to Miami, and the news was everywhere. Everything about was going on, and I was in my little mind frame of getting better and feeling better. And my mama took the Miami Herald every day and cut all the articles about Bundy and the attack that she could. So I'd open the paper and there'd be like holes in it to read. And she wouldn't let me listen to the news. It was all over the local news channels about the attack. So Mama didn't tell me a lot about what happened. It was something I was learning. But about 2 weeks after the attack, Ted Bundy was caught in a car going out of Pensacola. He was arrested for a traffic violation, and they didn't know who he was at first, but then Ken Casares, the sheriff in Tallahassee, thought he knew who this guy was. So back then, they didn't have a lot of communication between states on supplying, oh, this is somebody here and there. So Ken Casares did his investigating and thought that this man may have been someone that came and attacked in his city. And it was Ted Bundy. When his name was brought up and told, I'm like, Bundy who? I was not in any set of mind when I was in college at 21, thinking about the crimes that were going out in the West Coast. I was going to frat parties and, having a great time, and that just isn't something that was on my radar then. So when we did find out who he was, then I started looking and seeing what he had done and who he was. And I became angry. I was hurt to be home. I was scared, and I was angry. So that's when I found out about Ted, and then I did my research and found out more about him.
I think another part of your book that I thought was very heartbreaking was you write about how your first instinct after the attack was to apologize to your roommate Karen, to the police, and to your family. And I'm wondering why you think survivors often feel that impulse to apologize for what was done to them.
In my case, I think I wanted to apologize because they were going through something. And I was sorry they had to go through it because of me. And I wanted everyone to know, it's okay, don't be like that. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what was in my mind at the time.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about your roommate, Karen, because who eventually, of course, there was this distance between the two of you. And we all know how trauma can impact relationships. So I think, can you discuss a little bit more about that?
Karen and I started to be roommates in the Chi Omega house in the fall of '77. I was a sister and initiated in the spring of '76. So she was a sister already, and we became friends because we shared a room together. So our friendship grew because of that. I didn't know a lot about her in that short amount of time as you get to be roommates, because it had only been a couple months. So after the attack, I was in Miami and she was in Tallahassee recuperating. And at some point, I felt so lonely and so mad and so everything you could think of, because I was in Miami by myself and I was hurting and I was lonely. And all the women were still up in Tallahassee, and they were taking care of each other, and they were taking care of Karen. But no one came down to take care of me. So over those years, I think it might still bother me, but that's okay. She and I just lost contact with each other.
And, moving from, of course, the losing touch to then sort of forming relationships, you also wrote about meeting the parents of other Bundy victims. So I wanted to ask how connecting with those families sort of shaped your understanding of all of these incidents and what it means to be a survivor too.
I have not been in a lot of contact with these other family members, and I over the years I felt like I wanted to so bad. I wanted to reach out. And if I did and say, hi, I'm Kathy Kleiner, and they'd see me, and I'm good, and I'm healthy, and I'm strong, but where was their daughter? What were they feeling? Their daughter wasn't here. It just happened yesterday to them. And I felt like being in front of them, because I wanted to feel good about it, wasn't enough that I needed to do. So I really did not get in a lot of contact with the families because I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, which makes total sense. You, of course, have expressed frustration at how Bundy has been portrayed in the media, and you write about how it feels like people have forgotten the victims. So I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about what you think could change in the way that we tell these stories in the true crime genre.
I think. Well, in Bundy's case, he was always portrayed as intelligent, handsome, debonair, and he wasn't. He was a loser. He dropped out of school. It took him 8 years to get his master's degree. When he was younger, he had terrible problems in school, and he was a peeping Tom, and he stole things, and he didn't have the want to do anything with his life. And as he grew older, he was hurting animals and watching girls play in the woods. And he wasn't right. He was just a slow learner, and kids made fun of him in school. And as he grew, he portrayed what he wanted people to see of him. And that's how this came about. But when you think about it, the documentaries and the movies and the books, they're trying to sell those things. They want to sell a movie. So they're going to make him look just as good as they can so they can then say how bad he was. So the glamorized Ted Bundy is just for story, because he was not. He was a loser and a loner.
Yeah, it's just fiction
Yeah.
for the story arc, right? So naturally, you would be initially hesitant to participate in those documentaries, but eventually that changed. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about how you reclaimed that narrative and how you chose who to be interviewed by and what to agree to.
There were, I wanted to talk. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted people to hear about me so they could hear and know about the other survivors. And I wanted to tell that in a format that wasn't going to talk about Bundy, was not going to tell his side of the story. So 48 Hours was wonderful. They approached me, and my husband and I went to New York, and we did the documentary. And they called a week later and took my son to New York, and they included him in the documentary, which was the first time I felt like my family was involved in all this. It just wasn't me. So I was careful on who I talked with and who I spoke to, because it was important for me to do this right, to tell it correctly.
Right, and now, you know, at that time there wasn't the same social media as we have now, and I'm sure you're seeing how victims, particularly women, are so scrutinized in the media. So I'm wondering how you think we can change the public discourse around how we talk about survivors.
I think survivors need to be known as people, as women. They didn't do anything wrong for what happened to them. It wasn't their fault. And I think a lot of people today want to blame them. Oh, they wore skirts too short, and oh, they were doing all this stuff. They were asking for it, when that's not the truth. The women that Ted Bundy attacked, he came up from behind, and he hit them with a tire iron. Or he would go into their room at night when they were sleeping in their beds, and he would attack them with a club. All these things he did from behind. And these women didn't even know it was coming. It wasn't their fault. They were just living their lives. And I think people need to understand that a victim has two things. They have who they were before, and then they have who they are now. And we need to think about that and help protect them and help build them back up.
So with you mentioning who they were before, who they are after, can you tell us a little bit about how this attack changed the way that you proceeded in life? Like one bit I can mention is even with meeting your now husband and how you sort of moved fast because you realized, you know, what time do we have?
Yeah. When I was attacked by Ted Bundy, I was a victim. Next day, I was a survivor. And I wanted to live that life. I wanted to be the survivor and have all the good things in life that you could do. You could make happen yourself. You don't need those people to make it for you. You don't need it. You're stronger than you think. I have Scott in my life. I've actually known him since high school. And we went separate ways and then caught up again. And it was so easy with him. It was just so comfortable and so good and so loving. But I wanted to be a survivor. I wanted to go through my life happy. And I wanted my parents to be happy. I wanted to get better for them as well. And from all my family, because I could tell they had angst and they were upset. But how do you help someone who wants to help you? So every now and then I would say, oh, Mom, can you get me something to drink? Yeah, I'll go get it. You know, just ask them to do something for them. I noticed it really made them feel good. And being a survivor is more than just living day to day. It's helping other people. I want to get out there and I want to let people know that, yes, I was a victim and now I'm a survivor, and what can I do to help you?
And on the topic of helping, how do you think that communities, friends, families can better support, you know, victims of violent crime? And maybe even like what are some common mistakes that people make where they think they might be helping, but actually it's not so helpful?
I think in my case that people would come up to me and not really know what to say. You know, they'd just be there and, oh, you poor thing. And that's not what we want to hear. As a victim, we don't want to hear we're poor things. You know, for them to come up and say, what can I do for you? How can I help you be better? What can I say to other people for them to come help you? just to understand us as normal, but we have been through something, but we're still normal. And don't approach us like, oh, poor thing, what can I do for, to be strong to us, because we're now strong as survivors.
Yeah, and you had to be strong to be a survivor, of course. So you've become an advocate for people who have experienced violent crimes. So I'm also wondering what advice you would give to someone who might be early on in their healing journey.
There's so much they're going to encounter, emotionally and physically. They have to understand, and everyone needs to know, that you are stronger than you think. There are people out there that can help you, but you have to help yourself first. You have to be out there and want to be better. So do it. Open that door and walk outside and see that sunshine on your face and look at the bugs on the ground. All that is normal. That's what we need to be in true of. That's what we need to know. I just think being positive and knowing that things are going to be bad. Some days they're going to be really bad for what they've been through. But it's up to them to turn around and see, how can I make that be better in the future?
Right, so I take it that's what you mean when you're right about too, trying to find like the beauty and the light, right, in life. And can you talk a bit about what that process looks like for you, but on a day-to-day basis?
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me as much now as it did. I'm strong inside, and I have my husband and my son around me, and I get off on their strength. But it seems like sometimes you just don't know how you're going to get along. You just don't understand what to do and how to do it. But just think of going out and helping someone else. You may need to be helped and to get through a lot, but there's so many times when you can just open your door and go to someone and say, hi, how are you today? And really mean it. When you see someone in the street, oh, that is a beautiful hat. If they had that hat and it was beautiful, say something. Don't just be someone that is all tense. Open up to yourself and let yourself feel good about yourself. Pamper yourself, but also be good to others.
Yeah, that's great advice. Really looking for the goodness. If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, the person that you were before this attack, or even if you could talk to who you were immediately afterward, what would you say to yourself back then?
I would go back to when I was younger. At the age of 13, I was sick all the time. I had low-grade fever and no energy. I just wanted to sleep. Mama took me to a doctor who took me to a hospital, and I was there for 3 months. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They were taking tests. My kidneys were failing. And all this was going on, and they had no clue how to make it better. They didn't know. So they told my parents to send me home and make me feel comfortable. There was a doctor from Cuba that approached my parents and said, we'd like to give her experimental chemo. My parents agreed, and so I started chemo in Miami. And it was so strong and so sickening. I started to lose my hair. I lost all of my hair. I was homebound for 7th grade of school. I would look out and I could see all the kids play, and then I would just go back to my room and fall asleep. And this was dragging on. And my parents worked, so I was alone by myself all the days. And sometimes I would pick up the phone and dial 0 just to talk to the operator. Sometimes they would talk to me, but other times they couldn't. But it was okay, because at least they said hello, so that kept me busy. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to get better. I wanted to be out there playing with the kids. And I wanted Mom and Dad to feel better, because they were going through, God knows how much anxiety, and not being able to help me, but just watching me fade. So after my chemo, I became stronger. I actually went out and told Mom I wanted to go to church, which I did. And 2 weeks later, I came down with shingles. So here I am with no hair, and I had shingles all over my face and down my neck. But I said, okay, I can just put a scarf on. Then I can go out and play with my friends. So it took a battle. It to finally get to where I wanted to be and start feeling stronger. And in high school, I joined theater, drama class. And I wanted to go there. No one knew my history. No one knew how sick I had been. But I was there to meet friends. And I could find that I could be anyone I wanted to be in that class, except that sick little kid that was bald and homegrown in 7th grade. And I think I would tell myself to use that as strength, because there's more coming at you. And you have to know how to be good in yourself and be strong, because there's going to be other things in your life that you're not going to be able to control, but you have to live through.
Yeah, and it seems like you did use that as strength, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And it also just shows, as far as, being a survivor goes, it's not, Ted Bundy doesn't take the headline as far as what it is that a person has had to endure.
Right.
So looking back at your journey, all of this, what do you feel most proud of? There's a lot to be proud of. I wonder what you feel most proud of.
I think I'm very proud of our son, Mike, because he didn't know the whole story about me and Bundy. He knew growing up that I had been attacked by somebody, and he was always very protective of me around people. He always had an eye out for me if we were in a group of people. But I think he grew up very strong and very, very good to hit both Scott and I. And I think one of my greatest accomplishments was letting him grow up in a normal life while I made cupcakes and had pool parties. And he was part of it. And I think that he's my greatest pleasure.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I don't want to take up too much time asking question after question. So what questions do you all have? You can just raise your hand and we'll go around.
Come on. Okay.
Go ahead.
I won't get in trouble for whatever I ask, right?
No. Anything.
How did you feel when Bundy got what he deserved?
He was taken to court in 1979, and he was sentenced to death.
Yes.
He died in January of 1989. So during those 10 years, he received several stays of execution. And I would always think, what judge would give him a stay, thinking he needed more time to appeal? If that judge had a daughter, would he have let her go out with Ted Bundy? So why does he need another stay? So over the years, it seemed not right that my roommates, Margaret and Lisa, that were killed that night when he came to the sorority house, that they never got 10 years of stays. And neither did any of the other women. And I fought back through a lot of pain and being really, really mad, until it came to the point where actually the execution was going to take place. The state attorney's office called us late that morning. It was about midnight, and he did not get another stay. They said that he was going to be executed today. So my husband and I tried to sleep, and we couldn't. So we went downstairs and turned on the TV, and there was some commotions around the prison. And there were one side of the group that said, "Fry Bundy," and the other side said, "Let Bundy live." So you had to be on either thought wave when you were doing this. And of course, I wanted to fry Bundy. So the morning came, and they called us and said that the execution had taken place, that he was dead. And I looked at my husband, and I started to cry. And I cried, and I cried. And he said, "I cried for a long time." And in my thoughts, I wasn't crying for me. I was fine, I was okay. But I cried for Margaret and for Lisa and for all the women. And I got it all out of my system. I took a deep breath. I looked at him and said, "I'm hungry, let's go to breakfast."
And then we bought a car later.
Oh,
The same day?
yeah. I forgot about that. Had bagels, bought car.
Big day. What other questions?
Yes.
Did you have to go to court? Were you part of the court procedures, and what was that like for you?
I was subpoenaed, so I had to do the deposition, in Tallahassee, and also I was at the courthouse for testimony. And when I was depositioned, I was taken up to Tallahassee from Miami, and I was taken into this big conference room. And there was a long conference table with the defense on one side and the prosecution on the other. And I sat down at the head of the table, and I looked up, and there was Ted Bundy on the other end of the table. And I just looked at him, and I stared at him. And I wasn't afraid. I didn't think he was going to come and hurt me. I was just there. He didn't kill me, and I was there. So after the prosecution and the defense talked to me and I was let to go, I went to my mom and dad, and I went into their arms, and I just wanted to be held. So we went home. Then it was time for the trial itself, and I was subpoenaed to be to give testimony. And I was in the courthouse. They snuck us in the back way because in Miami, all the news characters and everyone was around outside the courthouse. So they snuck me in the back way and went up, and I had to sit in a big classroom. And as I did, in came the paramedics that attended me that night. And also came in the police officers, which were the first people I saw. And when I did see them, I knew I was going to be okay. He wasn't going to let anyone hurt me now. And I saw these people, and it made me feel good. It was a bad memory, but good people. So it was my turn to testify. And I went in the courtroom. I sat down, and at the table was Ted Bundy. He looked so pompous. He was just like, come on, let's get away with this. And he asked such stupid questions. And then the defense asked me one question in particular. They said, is this the man you saw in your room that night that you accused of attacking you? And I had to say, I don't know, because I didn't see his face. I didn't have my glasses on, and the room was dark, and I couldn't see his face. And that's always haunted me, that I wasn't helping to be the reason why he was found guilty. But I know my testimony, along with everyone else, did prove the point.
Well, and that you were honest. I think that's astounding and speaks to your character. That you know that it's him, right? But you were honest, even,
Yeah, I
It's a
figured
very hard thing to do.
in a minute it went past judge, jail. No, I didn't see him.
What other questions? Go ahead, Georgia.
Yeah, I have a question. After the attack and your recovery, did you go back to the university? Did you go back to the sorority? And what was that like?
After the attack, it was a couple years later that I went back to the FSU for a football game. And I was with some people that we actually drove up from Boca Raton to the game. And I said I wanted to go back to the sorority. So we drove around town, and we came to the front of the sorority. They opened the door, and they said, I'm going to go get a beer. We'll come back for you later. So I'm standing looking at the sorority, and I took my baby steps, and I walked to the front door, and I went to open it, and it opened. And there were women walking around they could have been ghosts as far as because they were there before. They were always there in that house. And they would say, can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you? No, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I walked up those big wooden staircases that I had been carried down in on a stretcher. I walked up those stairs. I walked down the hall to room number 8. I opened the door, and it was so full of sunshine and so very pretty decorated. It was someone's wonderful room now. And it wasn't that thing I remembered when I left Tallahassee and I was taken out that night. So that was the time I returned to Chi Omega, and I never went back since.
And you did return to school.
I went back to school, but I didn't go to study.
Right.
During the course of the attack and recuperating, I ended up getting married. And I wasn't married for very long. It was 6 months after the attack. And I don't think I would have stayed married to anyone. I married 6 months after the attack, because my mindset and his mindset and our parents' mindset was not, let's do this for the long run. It's like, just do this now and take care of each other. So I did not go back to school to study at that point.
I have another question.
Okay.
I'm wondering how you protect your own mental health when your story is retold over and over and over again, but not necessarily by you, you know, the story of those attacks.
It's hard not to control the narrative. Sometimes they get it really wrong, and I want to just speak out and say, no, it didn't happen like this, you know, but they have the way they've done it, and it's in print, and so, you know, it can't be corrected at that point. But it makes me angry when they don't get it right. And when I do hear the story over and over, I'm hoping that they do include the other women, that the story's not just about me, that so much other things happened, and I'm allowed to tell my small part of being attacked by Ted Bundy, and that he's a smaller part.
What other questions?
Mama, you got any questions?
Well, I'm just curious. You had nightmares, or did you have nightmares afterwards, and how did you handle that?
Did you have nightmares afterward was the question. How did you handle that?
I didn't have nightmares. I didn't. I think I put everything in its place in my mind during the day, and I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid he was going to attack me. I wasn't afraid that in my dream, you know, it would be something he'd come and, you know, terrorize me for the rest of my life. I just didn't have dreams. And, but I did have a crowbar under my pillow.
That's a change. It's not everywhere. Go ahead, Georgia.
Well, how long after you were attacked was Ted Bundy caught? Because he would have still been on the loose.
Right. He went from Tallahassee to Lake City, where he killed Kimberly Leach. He was there just a couple days, and then he was leaving the state and went through Pensacola. And that's how he was stopped on a traffic violation. And that's when it started that he became in the Tallahassee judicial part of the journey for him.
Yes, not all that long. And how old were you at the time?
I was 21.
21. What other questions? Go ahead.
How long were you after you were attacked? Did they find you, or how did that come about?
The question was, how long did they find me after the attack? The attack happened at 3 o'clock on Sunday morning, the 15th of January. The episode came that he came into our room. He had a club in his hand. This person walked through the back door of the sorority, picked up a piece of firewood, and went through a door that wasn't closed correctly. He just walked through the sorority, went up the stairs, and turned down the hallway with the rooms in them. And the first room he came to was Margaret Bowman's room. He attacked her with that club and strangled her and killed her. He put the sheets up next to her neck. Looked like she was sleeping. He went out and closed the door. Across the hall, he went to the next room, which was Lisa Levy. She was attacked and killed. He then marked across the hall to my room, number 8. Our room was the size of a normal dormitory. On each side of the room, we had a dresser, our desk, and then our footboards to our twin beds. Our headboard leaned against the back wall, and it was a bank of windows, and the curtains were always open because we had beautiful plants hanging on the curtain rods. So that night, I heard the carpet swish as the door moved across it. It was 3 a.m. and I was asleep, and it brought me awake just a little bit. But I didn't know until a few minutes later that we had a footlocker between our twin beds. Crash. Somebody tumbled over that. Now I'm awake. I hear him, and I look, and I see a figure, someone standing right next to me. And as I did, I saw him raise his hand off over his head, and he attacked me with that piece of firewood. And he hit me so hard that it shattered my jaw in 3 places and slammed down on my head. My roommate began to stir, so he went and attacked her with that same club. I was moving around. I was moaning, and I had made myself into the smallest little ball I could put myself into, because I thought if he didn't see me, he wouldn't kill me. But he came back across my room because Ted Bundy never left his victims alive. And as he did, he lifted his hand, and right then the room became full of light. It was bright and shiny, and I didn't know that someone was bringing a date home, and our back window faced the parking lot. And this light shone up into our room so bright, he let his sorority sister out of the car, and then the room got black again as he was turning out of the driveway. And as it lit up, I could see someone standing there. This person was really antsy and trying to move around. And as he did, he ran out the door and out the sorority house. So now I'm lying in bed, and I'm hurt, and my face feels like needles and daggers, and I'm afraid he's going to come back. But my roommate had also been attacked, but she got up out of bed and walked down the hallway to try to find help. And when she did, there were sisters outside on the hallway, so they turned on the light and brought her back into our room. Then they could see the damage to her face and me and my little ball on my bed. So someone called 911. It wasn't long after the attack. And the police came first. And I do remember the gentleman sitting next to me on the bed, at the head of my bed, taking care of me, and just telling me it was be okay. And I knew it, because that was a cop, and he was gonna take care of me. And then the EMS came. And then I was taken out of the sorority, down the stretcher into the hospital. And then I was in the ER, and I was there a week, and it was very traumatic. And I think not knowing and hurting at the same time makes a weird combination of So it took a while, but not too long after I was attacked.
I mean, it really is astounding how you're able to speak about this. I think even no matter what length of time passes, and that you speak about it so eloquently, really, and with emotion too. But I'm wondering, so you didn't speak about this publicly for such a long time, and what was it that made that change? What shifted?
In 2018, I was approached by an author, Tori Telfer, and she wrote the first article about me that was published in Rolling Stone. And it was a great article. And people read that article, and they started to reach out to me. And I was embarrassed, and I didn't know who to talk to or who not to talk to. And my husband and I helped me decide, is this somewhere I should go? So that was a time that I felt I was opening up and waking up. We had just moved to our new house, and things were starting anew. So then I thought, this story has to be told. It's not about me, it's about the other women too, but I'm ready to tell my part of it. So 2018 is when I opened up.
I mean, I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're thankful that you did, and I know you have helped so many people through writing this book. And again, if you've not bought the book or read the book, you really should. It's a wonderful book.
Thank you very
did
much.
A remarkable job.
Thank you.
But yeah, so we'll move on to the signing portion. So let's give Kathy a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank
If
you.
you haven't gotten your book yet, they're right downstairs, and then Kathy's happy to sign them.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.